It has been brought to our attention that depending on the platform that you listen to, you can no longer hear some of our previous episodes.
Some of our favorite episodes.
Some of the ones where people would reach out and say, hey, listen, I can't believe that you talked to insert whatever name here.
And honestly, it makes us a little sad that you can't go back in time and have a listen because the stories were really incredible.
We reference a lot of times, we had a chance to talk with so-and-so in the past. And if you can't go back, then it's kind of just, So we wanted to bring some of those guests, some of those former guests back into the spotlight.
We're going to call it like a rerun, I think.
A Why Me Project rerun.
Do you remember those?
I do. Back in the day, or you used to throw the tape into the VCR and, we're dating ourselves.
We are, but a rerun was the opportunity to rewatch one of your favorite episodes. Now everything's so accessible. Well, we thought it was.
Yeah, exactly. So without further ado,
here's your Why Me Project rerun.
If there is somebody that you would like to hear on the show, to reach out to us, whymeproject@outlook.com. So here is an email from Alex that says, Johnny, Hollie, I know you guys love music and different music styles. You should check out a man by the name of Branan Murphy. I would love to hear his heart. You see if you can get him on the show, from Alex. So Alex, without further ado, my friends, Mr. Branan Murphy.
Alex, I'm your biggest fan, Alex.
Aw.
It was weird. His last name's Murphy. Sounds like your brother, but we're not here to judge. Brandon, we like to ask the skill testing question because we never know where it's going to go. Who are you and where did you come from?
I am Branan Murphy, and I'm a singer-songwriter. I come from the state of Georgia, a small town in Georgia. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina now.
From what I've been told from others is that you and I, if we were to ever meet, would be best friends, because if music is not your number one passion, sports is your number two passion.
You got me, Johnny. Absolutely. Okay. I'm a huge sport. I tell people all the time, I know three things and really like nothing else: Jesus, music, sports. Don't ask me about anything. I really don't know anything about anything else. I'm just pretty much guessing. But those three things are pretty major key for me.
Hollie, what's my three?
Faith, family, football. I got that right.
You'd be a great redneck because that's kind of their three too.
I got to move down to the south. I can say that right now.
Yeah, you were born in the wrong place, because I can say that because I'm from there. But that, man, it just sounds like Bible Belt language to me.
Was music always a love, or did you come to the realization later on in life that, dang, I got a talent?
Music was always a love, for sure. I didn't know I was any good at it because some of my earliest memories are like going on family trips, like road trips in the car with my dad and my brothers. I would have my headphones in, but I would sing the songs like out loud. Of course, like my brothers are like, Dad, tell him to shut up. But my dad, he would only tell me to stop when they were about to lose it. Like their first 2 or 3 times, saying, hey, you gotta tell him to be quiet. He would just let me sing. And I've actually thanked my dad, hey, Dad, thanks for letting me still sing, even when they were annoyed the first couple of times, because it just helped me work that muscle of singing. So I've always loved music. Whenever I've heard music, even as a kid, I would just always try to sing along with it. I just love it, just in me. I just love it. Didn't know I was good at it probably until later on, late elementary school, probably. Yeah.
Well, growing up for you, you've got brothers. How was life in the Murphy household?
Life was good. We were blessed. I do come from a broken home. So when I say brothers, that's brother and stepbrother. My parents divorced when I was 4 or 5. So it's those are some of my earliest memories. So that was tough. That was definitely traumatizing for me as a kid. And I just say that because I know at some level we all come from broken homes, right? So, but God was very gracious, very kind. Even though that was a situation and it was very difficult, I would describe my upbringing very blessed. I'm adopted as well. So that's a different layer too, that the older I get, the more I realize just how miraculous that is, and just seeing God's goodness in that, and a very, very blessed upbringing, even though there was brokenness all around me. Yeah.
Did you know, were you told at a young age that you were adopted, or were you told later on?
Yeah, I've always known. So I think my parents just did a really good job of like putting that in front of me, making it like, hey, this is, you're special. Like, we got to choose you, kind of thing. And yeah, I think when it's done that way, it's a real blessing.
Growing up in that situation, I mean, you'd say it's a real blessing, but now that you're older, looking back, do you ever have that sense or that wonder of kind of where did I come from? Kind of being in that situation. Like, I came from a broken home, so I didn't grow up with the Trinidadian side of my family. So often I'm wondering, well, is this a trait from that side? And I would love to know more. Do you ever have that curiosity?
So it's crazy because when I got married, almost 7 years ago now. That's crazy.
Nice. She asked us to ask you that question. So
yes. So now you're prepped, ready to go. For that anniversary.
I won't give that away. We'll edit that out. But anyway, my wife, when we got married, and she of course knew that was part of my story. Like, she's been like way more like intrigued and like on a mission to like help me find my parents than I have. I care. I mean, I probably care so much because she cares now. But it's funny that you asked that, because in the last year, we've started the process of trying to find biological relatives, and I did 23andMe. I did Ancestry.com, their DNA kit as well, and haven't really. The closest thing I found was like a possible like first or second cousin, and he was adopted too. So we both have like the same issue. But there's still some things. Actually, I've like posted about it on social media. A couple of people have reached out to me and have been like, hey, there's this agency you can try because you were born in Georgia. So we're looking into that now. And there's still some steps we can take. So hopefully, I would just love to find my mom, especially. The only thing I know about her is that she was a teenager from Savannah, Georgia. So Savannah means something a little different to me now. It hits different for sure. And, I just want to find her and tell her thank you for choosing life. And just to let her know, like, no matter what happened, I hold on to Jeremiah 1:5, that where God says, but before you were in the womb, I knew you. And I consecrated you. He told Jeremiah, I appointed you obviously to be a prophet to the nations, but just in that, like, God not only knows us in the womb, but he knows our purpose. He knows our life from beginning to end. And so just to be able to connect with her, my dad, or whoever else, to say, God sits enthroned above every decision that you make. And, I want you to know I'm okay. And I want you to know that my journey has led me to know who Jesus is, and I want you to know him too. And so it would just be an amazing thing to be able to share the gospel with them and just just to say thank you.
I got goosebumpies right now, man.
I know.
I mean,
this is like all fresh on my heart because we've been thinking about this as a family lately, or my wife and I. So sorry to get so deep so early.
No, it's good though.
I like it.
I mean, yeah, you can pivot one of two ways. You could be incredibly angry about it and that, mom gave up on you, but you see it more as, hey, thank you for choosing life. You've given me an opportunity. Yeah. You gave my stepmom and dad, my mom and dad, an opportunity to have me in their life. And I mean, look what you've turned it out to be. And I mean, now married and kids and a musical career. So I think that you could have pivoted one of two ways. And I know that you're diving through it, but it's still incredible to see.
Yeah, I have no anger in my heart. I have nothing but thanks, like Thanksgiving. Like, I just feel so thankful because like, you don't know about like the horrors of abortion and things like that when you're a kid. Like, you don't know that like that's the juxtaposition. Like, that's where and the other thing to know too is like, not everyone who is adopted, their parents were making the choice between abortion and adoption. So we don't need to like take it to that extreme. But if she was considering that, now that I'm older, the older I get and the more horrors I see with abortion, the more thankful I am. How could I have anything other than just like joy, and like I would be excited to connect with her and just say thank you. There's nothing else inside of me but thank you.
I'm hoping to see an episode now of Who Do You Think You Are? With you in it and your wife going through that journey, because it's kind of cool to uncover your past and more about your story and to see how it all links together. But you mentioned faith and how God is such a huge part of your life. That part of your story, when did that start?
I grew up in Georgia, so you grow up in the Bible Belt. It's impossible not to just be around at least churchianity, maybe not Christianity, but definitely churchianity, as I like to say. So I was very churched growing up, and I did hear the gospel in the church that my family went to. But being around like that, I feel like that can be also more dangerous, because then church and Christianity and things like that just become cultural, just parts of society that like everybody kind of fits into. And of course I'm a Christian, because who wouldn't be, and like, that's not the way the Bible lays out following Jesus. And so I had to like understand, I had to fight through all of that, the cultural stuff. And I had to like evaluate my heart, like over time as a kid growing up. So like in the 6th grade, my mom was like, we say this too in the South, bless her heart. But my mom, God bless her, and with all of the best intentions, was like, I think you're old enough to be baptized. That's literally what she said to me. So it was kind of like, we go to church. I know, you're old enough now. Time for you to be baptized. So like, I went through the whole thing and prayed a prayer or whatever, and got baptized and was a wet sinner for about 5 more years. And just because that wasn't my decision, that was my mom's decision. I get to high school and I'm dealing with all kind of temptation, and I'm just like, I'm dealing with being one person when I'm at church, and then being another person when I'm at school and on the baseball field, or playing sports or doing music or whatever, trying to fit in. And I could fit in everywhere. I could win wherever. It was actually through Centrifuge summer camps that I think that I actually went like after my 9th, 10th grade years, where I like really heard the gospel, where it was really like the first time the scales were removed from my eyes, that like, this is a decision that I have to make, to put my faith, to repent of my sin and put my faith in Jesus. And this is, not something that is just a cultural thing. And it was, what started making sense to me is like how much conflict there was like in my heart from Sunday to Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday, that like, you know what I mean? Like I just was just so many different people. And so along with that, when I was in the 9th grade, a friend of mine who was in the 8th grade, he came home. It was a summer day. He came home from like football camp, and came home from practice and died in his kitchen in a matter of moments. He had an enlarged heart that no one knew about, and his heart exploded, and he died in a matter of minutes.
Wow.
House, just life, just gone. That also made me like think deeply about life, death, faith, the scriptures, things like that. So those two things put together, by the time I was 17 years old, and honestly was just scared to die and wanted to get things right. There wasn't a whole lot of richness. I just didn't want to die apart from Jesus. That was pretty much it. That's what brought me into the kingdom. And since then I've grown since then. But I always say I was saved at 17 when all of that kind of came together for me. And I said, Jesus, I don't want life without you. And so that's when I really surrendered my life.
Usually I have a 2-part question, but for the first time ever, I have a 3-part question. Part one to this.
Write these down.
No, I got you.
Okay.
Part 1 to this question is, so you're singing in the vehicle. Dad is, encouraging you to do that. Who was the musical influence at that time?
Primarily the Beach Boys.
Ooh.
Yeah. But
see that coming.
But you didn't expect that.
No.
So my parents, like I said, I'm adopted. My parents were older when they adopted me, and so they're oldies fans. And so like my dad, you know, he definitely like, I did have a great foundation when it comes to like music listening just as a kid, because he introduced me to the Beatles and then a lot of like Motown groups. And so like the Temptations, listened to a lot of that like as a kid. And then I had both of my brothers are older. My stepbrother is 7 years older. My brother is 3 years older. And so I just, you know, when you're in the house with them, you just, whatever they have, you just receive it. You know, it's like you don't really have your own stuff. You just kind of play off of theirs. And so I was listening to stuff that was like, I should not have been listening to. That's 7 and 8 years old. I'm like listening to Tupac and, you know, my brother, both of them were like into like grunge rock too. So like anything from gangster rap to grunge rock to like just alt pop stuff. Like I was super into NSYNC. I loved Eminem.
That's what I thought the answer was going to be, by the way.
Yeah. My affinity for Justin Timberlake goes back a long way.
Okay, so then part 2 to that was, so then you come to the realization that you have this talent, that you have this voice. Was Christian music kind of the next step? Like, I want to be in music, but I also want to do Christian music. Yeah. So a lot of that kind of came together like around the same time, because also when I was 17, it was like, you know, junior year of high school. And like one of my teachers had us to do like this career project where it's like, you know, you probably did that when you were in school too. Like, let's try to figure out what you're going to do with your life at 17. And like, there were just all these options for us to like choose from to do a project. And I didn't want to do any of it. I just had no desire. And I like came to the conclusion, like, and I was like singing in some like garage bands or whatever at the time. And like, you know, just picked up a guitar the year before and learning stuff with my friends. And I told my best friend, I was like, I think I want to sing for a living. Like, I want to be a singer. And he looked at me and he's like, you have to be like really good to do that, you know?
That's encouraging.
Like, well, that's
bless your heart.
That's condescending. I don't know what condescending means at that age, but that's what that is. So I've never forgotten that. I actually tell that story a lot in interviews and stuff. So Anthony, if you ever see this. But yeah, so like knowing that like I wanted to do music for my career and then becoming a Christian, I was just kind of like, and that was really like the year before that, maybe 2 years before that was really like my introduction. I didn't even know Christian music was a thing. Because I'm from a small place. Like I'm not, you know, and I wasn't surrounded by that. I didn't know. I knew church music because we went to church. I knew hymns and worship music and things like that. But I didn't know Christian music was like a thing. I really didn't. At 17, I just started to like, you know, listen to so much Christian music, worship music, things like that. And I was like, yeah, I guess this is my path now because I'm a believer, you know? So yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So part 3. So now that you're in the Christian music industry, and I mean, you do have a sound of many different talents because you can sing, and then you do the rapping thing, and you have a pop. And do you find that there's a comparison? Do you compare yourself to maybe others in the industry? Like, oh, I really like what Torrin Wells did, or I really appreciate what insert person did here. Or do you kind of just go into it saying, I'm going to be Branan, and that's just who I am?
I would say yes and no. Like, I think when I, you know, signed my first record deal and things like that, like, I think my goal was to not be like anyone, you know, just thinking like because I do think I'm unique to be like all of the things that I do, like coming together, I think is a little unique, but I do love, you know, what Torrin Wells does. I love Torrin. He's a great guy. And, you know, obviously love his music. I would like compare myself definitely to him. He's like maybe one of the few that I would compare myself to. And there's others who are super talented. I just feel like I'm different than a lot of people. And so I say yes and no, because like, that's been like really challenging to me too, to like find my lane and my people. And at times like been harder to build relationships in the industry because I don't feel like I have a lane that certain other people have. But there's a lot of people I look up to, a lot of people that I respect in the industry for sure, and who are influential.
We've been seeing a lot just with artists, even pastors, going through seasons of life very publicly where they're essentially deconstructing their faith and really making and asking a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Do you find that you do that through your music as well, or because I'm just kind of curious about just that part of your faith and growing up in the 80s and 90s. There's a lot of things that I think we all are like questioning and wondering. So how much does that play into your life, but also the creative side too?
I think that's the essence of like being an artist and making art is asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's where it all starts, is we're either asking like, what is this? What's going on? Or what should this be? What should be happening here? What should we be seeing? And like art, hopefully, and a lot of times, like you'll hear in my art, at least up to this point, like I actually use songs to ask some of those questions. Some of those things, like I don't resolve them, because I think there's a place for just asking questions. I think there's a place for art being the instrument to catalyze conversation and catalyze progression towards Jesus and his heart. I think that's what we're seeing right now, like in the church. It's like there's a lot of pruning going on right now. Only one way to be pruned. You don't get pruned by getting a massage. You get pruned with shears. Is that the word? Shears?
Yeah.
Big scissors, right? Yep. Or little scissors. Or little needles. Like you only get pruned by being cut. I see that happening right now, but I think like, I know I'm 100% confident that God is showing us, he's showing the church his heart, and he's making our hearts more like his. And in the pruning, there may be, if you read John 15, like Jesus says, any branch in me that does not bear fruit, my Father burns. He throws into the fire. But any branch in me that does bear fruit, my Father prunes so that they will bear more fruit. That's what God's after. He's not after throwing us away. He's taking the church that is bearing fruit and saying, no, I need you to bear more fruit. And in this society and with all we're facing right now, this is not a mistake. I need to prune you so that we can bear more fruit. This is a very important time for our society. And it's a very important time for the church too, to respond well and to respond in love and to learn and grow along with everybody else and to really get close to Jesus and listen to his heart. That's definitely happening in my life. I'm thankful for my church that I actually lead worship at my church, the Summit Church in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. And we're having a lot of those conversations. Like it's what I love. Like we're not backing away. The church, we cannot back away from these things. And I can talk about this a lot because I'm so passionate about a lot of things that are going on. But yeah, I think you're going to see more of that in my music too. I think it's important for Christians to speak to the culture.
Do you find that once you got married and had kids that you changed maybe a little bit in the songwriting or in the way that you're doing music?
Yes. Listen, it's impossible to get married and have kids. And if you want to be a good husband and a good dad, it's impossible not for everything in your life to change. And for all the right reasons. And so that's definitely happening. Just my approach, my time, the way I spend my time, the way I think about, music and who it might reach. Yeah, like it's definitely changed. I'm really interested to see what this next season holds because there's a lot in my heart.
Well, this is the Why Me Project podcast. So we were talking about, asking questions. So I'm going to ask you the question of, what is a why me moment in your life that you can share with us today?
Oh, man. Okay.
Which one?
Yeah, the better question is which one? I feel like there's why me's probably every day, definitely every week that happen to all of us. So it's just something recent to me. Like I don't have to go far to find a good example. My mother-in-law, my wife's mom, is maybe the greatest human being I've ever known. She's the godliest woman I've ever known. She, there are times when I've thought you're not a human being. You're just an angel, just in human flesh, and just disguised, But she's so special to our family. She's a treasure to all of us. She's like the glue, for our family in a lot of ways, and we all look up to her. And even I'm her son-in-law, but she calls me her son. And she'll call me just to talk to me, to pray for me, to leave me voicemails of like, who leaves voicemails anymore, by the way? My mother-in-law.
She does.
She does. And but she does the audio text too now. I actually have, I'm not joking to you. I have 2 audio texts from her right now that I haven't listened to. I guarantee you she's talking to Jesus about me. That's who she is. And we found out in January that she's been diagnosed with cancer for the 3rd time. This is her 3rd battle over the last 15 years. Right in the, we're still in the pandemic. We haven't seen them in like over a year. And, Ashton, my wife's name is Ashton. She misses her family, misses her mom. And then we get a cancer diagnosis, and it just makes that darkness so much darker. It's like when I think about Tammy, my mother-in-law, it's like, she doesn't deserve this. Like, that's my like my fleshly thought. It's like, this woman leads people to Jesus. She leads me to Jesus like every day. Like, she loves my kids. She's just such a great person. Why? Maybe not why me, but why her? But we are even in that, like, asking why me? Like, why is this happening? Why is this happening now? Why is this happening again? And it's crazy, like, as this sounds, because we're a few months in now, and we've just seen God like move. The prognosis, thankfully, is like hopeful for her again. And it's because of a few miracles that have happened to like give her a strong prognosis, a hopeful one. But we have just seen God move in her and move in us. And like, if the Bible says, if 1 Peter 1 says that your faith, for all of us, faith in Jesus is of greater worth than gold, and then it says, which perishes even though refined by fire, right? So like, faith can only become gold if it's refined by, or gold can't become gold without being refined by fire. And our faith is the same way. You don't know your faith is real, and it can't become gold to you until it's tested. And it's just impossible. It just won't happen. That's just the way God works. And so you need to hear that. If you haven't suffered yet, you're either coming out of suffering or heading into it. That's just life. And we don't need to be afraid of that if we belong to Jesus, because of all of his promises. The most famous one, he works all things for the good of those who love him. But like, what we're seeing in our life is like, with everything that's happening, I heard my wife pray this actually the night before my mother-in-law went into surgery to remove these tumors. I heard my wife pray, Jesus, having you is better than a cancer-free life. And it struck me, like, how could this is her mother. This is like the most, she's just so dear, right, to her. And how could she say that? Because Jesus has proven himself to be better to her than any level of suffering with any person that we love, be it the person you love most, other than me. She loves me most, hopefully.
Of course.
Of course she does. But like, it's her suffering that it's like made her who she is. Like, I look at my wife and I say she's the strongest person I know because of how she suffered and trusted Jesus through it. And like, that's happening in our lives, in my own life too now. And like, I just wouldn't trade it. Like, I don't want her to have cancer. I wouldn't want this at all. I also wouldn't trade what's happening in our hearts right now and what's happening in our worship,
It's a good reminder that no matter what we're going through in life, that this world is not my home.
Oh,
and
facts. This is my kind of thing. Yeah, it really is. It's like,
people don't want to hear your like people's pat answers or the rehearsed answers. Everyone's hurting so much. So like, let's just get real.
Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to go where I went with that question. Because, man, I'm trying to listen. I have, like, not because of COVID, but like during the pandemic, I have never seen more suffering in a matter of 13 months. Mm-hmm. Like, I have just, it's all around me. And like I said, like very little of it has to do with COVID. One of my best friends' wife lost her dad died in a car crash on the way home. It had nothing to do with COVID. He just died in a car accident on the way home. Another friend of mine, he lost his mom. She had a heart attack. It had nothing to do with COVID. She just had a heart attack and died. Yeah. Like I know 4 different families that have been hit by cancer before ours. Again, nothing to do with COVID. It's like, it has been such a heavy year, which is crazy.
What does the next season hold for you? Because, I mean, we're dealing with a pandemic. We don't know when any of this is going to end. You're touring, and that is different. Do you have any hopes as to what it looks like? Or do you already kind of know, hey, this is what, 2021 or 2022 is going to look like?
I don't really know. That's the easiest answer. There's more music that's going to come out. I just actually talking to my team about some of that earlier today before we got on this call, about a song I'm really excited about, and just working on who's going to feature on it, and excited about some of those names that were tossed around, but I can't share that here.
You can. You're choosing not to. You're self-editing, Branan. We can throw out names, and
Indeed,
then you can say yes or no.
Blink twice if.
What genre of music is this person?
Christian.
There you go. Oh, stop prodding.
Christian rock, Christian screamo, Christian hip hop, Christian country, Christian
I said gospel. What I said.
Okay.
But for me, just putting out music and that's really been this has been an important time for me to get new music and kind of the next phase of who I am, where I am right now to people, I made an album a couple years ago, put out some singles, and now it's kind of just turning the corner, taking the next steps. And that's getting songs to people. So that's the main focus this year. And hopefully that leads to performing again. I missed it a lot. There's not really much on the horizon for that, but hopefully, yeah.
The kids are like, Dad, we've seen the show again. Stop. We're trying to watch.
Yeah, right. I am so thankful to be home as much as I have been, and just, man, this season with my kids, and my wife, it's just been so special. But I do miss performing. I hope that happens again.
At Branan Murphy on all socials, BrananMurphy.com. Make sure you check out his latest and all the updates. My friend, we appreciate you taking some time.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to an old episode, a past guest of our Why Me Project rerun.
Something that we're starting now because there are so many episodes that we really did love, and they've kind of disappeared from the digital world.
And speaking of digital world, I did a little recon. There are at least 9 different platforms in which you can listen to the Why Me Project podcast.
Okay.
So there's no excuses, but I mean, some of the main ones like Apple Podcast and or Spotify.
And you could always head to our social media accounts to stay up to date, as each and every Wednesday we have a brand new episode for Why Me Project. And you can also let us know if there's someone that you would like to hear on a future episode.
At Why Me Project on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Why Me Project at Outlook.com.